Hello, this is Cousin Vinny Agnello, critically acclaimed author of The Devil's Glove. I'm in Virginia Beach, and this is I'm on vacation, and this is the Bedtime with Cousin Vinny series, featuring my critically acclaimed hit, The Devil's Glove. I think last time I left you off was on page 14, and let's continue our storybook time. Upon arrival, he rolled Billy's body, uniform and all, into the tarp. He took some extra time to wrap Billy's prized green glove, which was covered with all that unique artwork, and some newspapers he found in the shed. The paper would help keep the glove from disintegrating in the ground. He went out of his way to make sure Billy and his possessions would stay dry for eternity. After it was wrapped, he placed the glove inside the tarp too. He didn't want bugs or animals to get to Billy's body, so he sealed him in tight with tape that covered up all the air holes. Before sealing the portion of the tarpaulin that would shroud Billy's face for eternity, he leaned over and gave him a kiss on the cheek, and through his tears reminisced back to brighter days when the two of them first became acquainted. It was the month of May in the city of Chicago, and the weather was unusually perfect for baseball. Comiskey Park was jammed to the rafters with folks who were dying to get a good look at Ruth, Gehrig, and the visiting Yankees from New York. The year was 1931, and the city, along with the rest of the nation, was right in the midst of the Great Depression. The ballpark became a getaway for the fortunate who still had jobs. Although the White Sox were not playing particularly good baseball at the time, the people still gathered at the ballpark to escape from the very real problems of poverty and unemployment that they faced in their daily lives. Baseball was America's favorite game, and Ruth and Gehrig were two of its greatest heroes. Outside the ballpark on any given game day, numerous children played pickup games in Armour Square Park. These children had big dreams and played their pickup games with the same intensity as the major leaguers who played inside the big stadium. One of these children was Billy Green. Billy loved the atmosphere that surrounded the ballpark on game days. There was an electricity in the air that purged the world of all of its troubles and gave him the will to survive and fight through the worst of times. On that note, let me not forget to reiterate that these were the worst of times. When having a full stomach becomes the measuring stick as to whether or not a kid has had a good day, is all the proof that's needed to ascertain that these were hard times indeed. Besides not having enough to eat, the biggest disappointment in this 10-year-old's life was the fact that he couldn't afford to buy a ticket to the ball game. But he took solace in the belief that he would someday play in that big ballpark next door. As he stood in the batter's box, staring up at the lanky 12-year-old on the pitcher's mound, he thought about how exciting it would be to be all grown up and playing in that big ballpark in front of all those cheering people. Just the thought of this gave Billy the chills and a rush that energized his entire body. As the pitch came soaring in, Billy, powered by an incredible amount of adrenaline, swung the bat on a collision course with the incoming ball and hammered it. The ball looked like it was shot out of a howitzer as it flew in a very low line drive trajectory between the left and center fielders. In what seemed like an instant, he confidently stood smiling on second base. By participating in many of these local pickup games, Billy was acquiring the skills necessary to give him a chance to see his big league dreams come true. He and the other kids would play until the White Sox had finished their game inside Comiskey. As soon as the crowd started to head toward the exits, he and his friends would make their way toward the locker rooms. This was the only opportunity available for poor kids who wanted desperately to meet their baseball heroes. He, along with a lot of other kids, would wait sometimes for hours by the locker room door to get autographs or at least a handshake from their favorite baseball stars. On this particular day, Michael was taking the trash out from the visitors' locker room when he noticed a young boy impeding his progress. "Mister, is Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig still in there?" Billy asked, turning on his puppy dog eyes. Old man Mike, who wasn't quite as old back then, told the boy that the Bambino and Columbia Lou were just about to leave for their hotel rooms. He added that he was surprised that anybody was still waiting around. Billy replied, "I'd never give up on either the Babe or the Iron Horse." Then he added, "Mister, did anyone ever tell you that you're awfully lucky to have a job like this? To be honest, mister, I'd do your job for free." "It's not quite as glamorous as you might think," Michael stated. "Sure it is. It's a job. That's more than most people got. Do you think there's a possibility that I could come into that locker room? I mean, I'm only talking for a minute or two." "What would you do if I let you in there?" "You mean you're actually considering it?" "Maybe." "What's your name, boy?" "Billy Green. What's yours?" "Michael." "It's a pleasure to meet you, Billy Green." "Mr. Mike, the pleasure will be all mine if you let me in that locker room." "Well, let me go inside for a moment and see what I can do." "Sure, but you're not going to forget about me, are you? You'll come back, won't you?" "Yes, I'll be back," Michael said as he disappeared inside the large metal door. Billy thought it seemed like an eternity before Michael returned, but in reality it was closer to 10 minutes. "Well?" Billy anxiously asked. He looked up at him with bated breath, awaiting his reply. "They said it would be all right for you to come in for a short visit," Michael announced casually. "Wow! I can't believe it! Wait until I tell my friends about this!" Billy exclaimed with excitement. He added, "I told those jerks to stick around, but they wanted to go home and eat. I would have starved for this. Come to think about it, I did starve for this. Michael, you are the best." Michael led the supercharged Billy into the locker room, and the boy couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the Babe stretched out on a trainer's table while receiving a massage. "You're Babe Ruth!" Billy screamed out excitedly. "Yeah, that's right, kid," the Babe chuckled. "What's wrong? You hurt?" "Kid, when you've been playing the game as long as I've been, you're bound to have an ache or pain or two," Ruth stated jovially. "I'll bet. Did you get a home run today?" "Nah, just a couple of doubles. Didn't you see the game?" "Nah, I missed it. If I can save a little money, I'll catch the next one," Billy said in embarrassment as he stared down at the laces of his shoes. "Hey, will you look up at me, kid? There's no shame in being poor. Heck, I was poor myself at one time, and if I remember correctly, I was no bigger than you are." "It's hard to believe you were ever my size," Billy said as he followed the Babe's wishes and looked up at him. In fact, he looked him straight in the eyes. "Well, believe it, kid. And here," the Babe motioned to a locker room attendant, grabbing his attention. "Joe, give this kid a couple of tickets to tomorrow's game on my account. You can make it, can't you, kid?" "You better believe it, Mr. Ruth. I wouldn't miss it for the world," Billy stated in reverence. Do you think I could get your autograph too? Sure. Better yet, how about I give you an autographed photo? It beats a signature. You know what I mean, kid? Do I ever? You know, Mr. Ruth, when I grow up, I'm going to be just like you. You mean without the aches and pains, don't you, kid? Aches and pains or not, I want to be just like you. The babe had a tear in his eye as he autographed the photo and handed it over to the boy. They shook hands, and then Michael led Billy into an adjacent room which was filled with lockers and introduced him to the Iron Horse, Lou Gehrig. Gehrig was much more shy and reserved in comparison to the babe. Gehrig shook the boy's hand and continued to dress. I can't believe I'm standing here in front of Lou Gehrig, Billy stated with wide eyes. What's your name, son? Gehrig asked. Billy Green. Mr. Gehrig, you don't mind if I tell you that you're the most incredible hitter I've ever read about. Nobody hits for power and average like you do. Billy, you mean you've never seen me play? Well, not yet, but that's going to change because Mr. Ruth gave me tickets to your game tomorrow. Well, that's great. That was mighty nice of Mr. Ruth. Congratulations to you. You're going to have a whole lot of fun. Now, Billy, would you mind if I told you something? No, I don't mind. Tell me anything you want, Billy said nervously. I wanted to tell you, Billy, that you shouldn't get so hung up on ball players. You know something? Believe it or not, we're only human too. We put our pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. We're not that special, Billy. We're lucky that we get to play a kid's game for a living, and we're able to meet nice young men like you. Mr. Gehrig, you and Mr. Ruth are truly two of the kindest people that I've ever met. And I'd like to thank you both for the time that you've been spending with me. I know neither of you had to do this for me, and this is something I'm going to probably remember for the rest of my life. Maybe someday with a little luck, I'll get to be a ball player too. And I swear, I'll try to be just like you two were with me today, Billy said solemnly, with a respect and maturity far greater than his years. I hope you get that chance someday. You are a well-spoken and articulate young man. I'm sure your parents are very proud of you. You just keep hanging in there, okay? I'll try. This was awfully exciting. Thanks again for everything, Billy said, smiling. On that note, Gehrig autographed a photograph of himself and gave it to Billy. Michael took Billy by the arm and led him outside again. Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. You really made my day, Billy confessed. No thanks are necessary, kiddo. I think you really impressed your heroes today, and I know that you really impressed me. Billy was turning to walk away when Michael suddenly called out to him, Hey, Billy, don't forget to come back and visit me sometime, okay? You name the time, I'll be there. Do you like to play catch? Sure do, but only inside the ballpark. You'll let me play where the White Sox play? Billy asked in astonishment. Any time except on game days, Michael said with a smile. Well, then you got yourself a catch partner, Mr. Mike. How many days do you work here anyway? All the time. I'm the caretaker. Sounds great. I'll stop by and see you tomorrow before the game. That's right. You're going to be at the game tomorrow, aren't you? You bet. Thanks to you. On that note, Billy started to race away for home. The sound of the boy's voice back then reverberated in the old man's mind, and for a moment he could picture young Billy running for home that first day. Michael broke away from those pleasant memories and folded the plastic that shrouded Billy's face. With some tape, he sealed the body bag that he had created. He knew the job ahead of him was going to be a long and tedious one. He had never dug a grave before in his life, and it gave him plenty of time to reflect upon happier days gone by. The first thing he had to do was carefully remove segments of sod from the area